Good day, and welcome to another. Good day, and welcome to another exciting episode of this Just In for the week of October 25th. This week, being so close to Halloween, I wanted to start the news program off with a scarier set of comic books. I did have some high hopes for Jughead The Hunger. Unfortunately, there were a few issues with it. First being, it is not actually tied into the rest of the Afterlife with Archie, Sabrina continuity. So it's previous to this in March, we had the Jughead The Hunger one-shot. Kind of teased with that, and I guess they thought it was successful enough that they would continue with the series. And this is, as I said, a continuation of that. We have Archie running off and with the circus to escape his deeds from Riverdale, and he's being pursued by Archie and Betty. Betty coming from a long line of werewolf hunters. It's not a bad standalone story, but probably just disappointed with the fact that for whatever reason they decided not to tie it into the Afterlife with Archie continuity. So if you like an alternate reality story for Archie, then this will certainly please. If you were looking for one more spin-off from the successful Afterlife with Archie, you will most likely be slightly disappointed. They did, however, try to tie it in with a Frank Caviolale cover. Nice cover, but in my opinion, I would most likely pass this week. However, a scary story that I did enjoy is Dark Arc number 2. Dark Arc number 1 was fantastic. The storyline is that it's an alternate arc. So we have, of course, the original arc with Noah and two of all the animals sort of thing. This is the other arc that you might not have heard of. It is the Noah character on this arc is Shrey. He's a sorcerer that has gathered up all the beastly, scary monsters and has decided to save them. Well, you have to read the story as to why. It is, this story focuses, whereas in issue number 1 we kind of had both the arc and the dark arc. This issue is specifically just on the dark arc and some of the unrest and possible mutiny that's happening on that boat, and how Shrey the sorcerer is going to keep, I guess, order, for lack of a better word, if such a thing can be maintained on a boat with all kinds of beastly creatures. If you're looking for something scary around Halloween, this is certainly a better pick. Also try and grab number 1 while you still can. There should be some copies out there. I believe it flew under the radar for many people, but it's a great story by Colin Bunn, who is renowned for some of his creepier tales such as Harrow County, etc. There were a couple fantastic surprises this week, and both of them came from DC. And probably if they weren't number 1 issues, I'd just like to explore things and test the waters with number 1. I may never have picked them up. This first one is actually a one-shot. It's the DC House of Horror. Typically around Halloween, a lot of the comic companies put out their Halloween specials, one-shots, that sort of thing. They're not the greatest stories a lot of the time. Sometimes they're testing new artists, new writers. A lot of the time they're a bit more juvenile. This is none of those things. This was such a pleasant surprise. It was amazing. So Keith Giffen is credited with the majority of the plots, not necessarily the writing, but he's credited, I believe, with every one. It's a number of short stories in here from the DC heroes. Let me just see. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 in here. and Keith Giffen is credited with doing the plots for every one of those stories. And then they didn't cheap out on the artists or the writers. We have Scott Collins. We have one of my favorites, which is where is he here? Rags Morales is fantastic. Kyle Baker. I mean, there's some really, Howard Chaykin is in here. There's some really interesting stuff in here. It is dark. It goes to dark places. This is not a comic you want to pick up for your kid. It is a very interesting read, but I would, if I were a young person reading this, I'd probably sleep with the lights on. It is a worthy pickup this week for sure. Another, now getting out of the scary horror genre, another pleasant surprise. Again, I most likely wouldn't have grabbed it off the rack, but it was in number one and I wanted to test it. One of the only things is Howard Chaykin gets the writing credit on this. I do enjoy Howard Chaykin. He can be a bit hit and miss. Sometimes he does the art, sometimes he does the writing, sometimes he does both. In this instance, thankfully, he just does the writing and he does it exceptionally well. It seemed like a cute, funny little story, The Rough and Ready Show. After I read it, I was so pleased by it. I did a little research. There actually was a cartoon called The Rough and Ready Show back in the 50s. I believe it was 1957. So this tells that story. It was a cute little cartoon, and this is almost a behind the scenes of what happens when the camera stopped rolling. So it's a story with a dog and a cat, and obviously natural enemies, and what happens, their relationship when the camera stops rolling. And it's so volatile that they actually their show is canceled because they can't get along. And then the story of almost a Hollywood insider of what happens to those two characters, the scandals they're involved in, how they struggle to maintain fame. Even the art is fantastic. They make some horrible movies. Here we see The Treasure Hunters. There's some bad acting, bad reviews, but the art is very cartoony, which I typically don't like. Obviously, it works well with this storyline. The artist is Mac Ray. I wasn't particularly familiar with him previous to this. I had read his Space Ghost work in the past, and I appreciated the art then. Very interesting style for this in particular. So I would actually strongly recommend. This was one of my favorites of the week. I'm as shocked as anybody, but certainly worth a read. Very interesting view of behind the scenes in a cartoon world. And they interact with humans. It's not just a cartoon world. They're cartoons in a human world, and also that dynamic as well. This was a very interesting book. Again, I like to explore everything, try and read number one issues, that sort of thing. So this is a continuation of Valiant's Divinity. It's called Eternity, obviously. Matt Kint is a personal favorite of mine, a great storyteller. Mind Management was an awesome series, so well thought out. He continues with Valiant. He's been with them for some time now. Some of the art in this is just amazing. This view of these steps, it starts out right in the thick of the action. There's no slow start to it. Almost Dali-esque landscapes. Just really incredible art. I'm not as familiar with the backstory on this, but this comic has intrigued me enough to start reading some of the Divinity again, so that I can understand what's happening in this and hopefully continue reading some of the issues. Valiant has been hard on the quality of the story. They aren't gimmicky covers. They aren't multiple covers. They're actually focused on good storytellers and good artists, which is a rarity these days in the comic industry. So we have an amazing writer, in my opinion, with Matt Kindt. And pardon me, I believe the artist is Herstein. I'm messing that up, sorry. But also a great history. There's even a interesting bit at the back where they show the pencils, the inks, and the colors. And Matt Kindt is actually explaining kind of why he feels that this artist was the perfect choice for his storytelling. And that was actually one of the most interesting parts of that comic. Next from Marvel, we have Weapon X number 10, and everybody has been losing their mind over this new Hulkerine Walk character. So people thought during the, I believe his first appearance was in Totally Awesome Hulk. We see a bit more character development in this issue. He's being controlled by one of the scientists. I don't want to give too much away because I know there's a lot of fans out there, but we can see how he maybe isn't the killing machine that they were hoping he would be. So if you are at all interested in this character, make sure you pick this issue up. And as we know, Marvel Legacy has been launching, relaunching, rebranding, renumbering, whatever comic companies do every few years. But one of the nice things, it's a really good jumping on point. So a lot of these issues are part ones of new story arcs. Black Panther, which I haven't been a huge fan of as of late. I wanted to pick this up. I wanted to check out the new Black Panther. The lenticular cover, which we have a number of, is really fantastic for this book. However, I still enjoyed this cover very much. So they've renumbered again with 166, and we're focused on Claw, who has been a long time enemy of the Fantastic Four and Black Panther. And this is a very focused story on Claw and his origin and why he is the way he is. Great storytelling, great character development. Very little focus on Black Panther. Obviously, this is the lead up to a showdown between the two of them. But, you know, certainly had me interested in a character that I didn't give a lot of thought to previously. So good read, very good read, Black Panther. A couple other fun items this week. Obviously we have the Netflix Daredevil, which is very cool, very fun. I'm shocked it's still in the box actually. I went crazy last year for the different Star Wars tiki cups. This is an alien tiki cup. Very, very fun. If you are a fan of aliens or of drinking, I would strongly recommend. Speaking of drinking, we also have the Thanos mug, suitable for coffee or other beverages if you so desire. Anyway, once again, for the week of October 25th, thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Good day.